doing what you can at home to stay healthy, and I hope it stays that way. But so many of the rest of us are compromised. How do we do better by schools get more open, more kids in there, and keep them that way? No easy answer, but there are ways. Certainly better than what we're doing now, especially as more schools are finding that just a single positive case can force the whole school to shut down, or at a minimum, a whole pod, a whole thing. Some Southwest Missouri school districts are trying to navigate this in a different way now. I call this reaction formation. This is what happens when you have a bad situation. People start doing bad things in response. To allow students who've been exposed to COVID to continue going to class and playing sports. The catch, they say, is the students have to keep their masks on and stay socially distant. The reasons for it are not irrational. There are real concerns here. You don't know that being exposed to somebody with COVID, you don't know what degree of virus the person that has it. Are they contagious? Are they not? Will you get it? Will you not? What are the chances? They're not so great. But what we know for sure is every day you're not in school is education loss. Too many kids are missing school. Nutrition. A lot of these kids go to school not just to learn, but to eat, to survive. And we know being out of school can have an impact on mental health. For some, it's a refuge from abuse. This is complicated. We need our schools. And now, just days into these changes, one district has had to reverse course. Why? Well, not because of new cases, but in a notice to parents, the Neosho District Superintendent said what started out as a quiet effort to determine if we could keep students in school without having a spike in positive cases became a political issue. Now, the Neosho Superintendent, I invite him on the show. Why? Sympathetic to his cause, understand why he's desperate to find a more safe way. Then he says, no, I'm canceling. Why? We're really conservative here. I thought you just didn't like it being politicized. I see them as sympathetic. I see schools like that as desperate for better answers. And he's going to play politics. Here's one thing that's clear. Despite that posture, I will advocate their cause. We need to do better by that school and others so that superintendents don't have to make decisions like that. Brandy Long is a parent of 3 kids who attend schools in that school district. And of course, Dr. Gupta, friend to all. Thank you for both. First, just to get the medicine here straight, Doc, the idea of, well, you are in contact with somebody who has COVID, but as long as you wear a mask and socially distance, you can still be around us. How safe is that?
Yeah, that's not the right answer, Chris. Unfortunately, if you've been exposed, and now say even if you get tested, testing is a big part of this. But even if you get tested for a period of time, there's a concern that you may actually have the infection. And the quarantine time people discuss this, and I think the outer limit's sort of 14 days. But typically, if people have been exposed, if they're going to develop symptoms, they're going to test positive. Typically happens within 5 or 6 days or so. But you have to treat that with a degree of care. If you've had a known exposure to somebody, you've got to assume that at least for a period of time, you're going to have to quarantine yourself so you don't subsequently pass the virus on to others. That's how outbreaks start to really worsen.
So, Brandy, you and I, and actually Sanjay, are kind of in a similar boat. You got 3 kids in the district. You got a freshman in high school. Good luck with that. You got a 4th grader doing virtual, and you got a 1st grader who you're homeschooling. So you really are spreading the risk, of course, across all the different kinds of concerns. What is your concern about the status quo at your school? Let's start with the freshmen in terms of how much they can test, how they're treating the kids, how confident they seem in their ability to control virus.
We're not testing. I mean, kids are getting tested, but the tests are hard to come by. I think if we had better testing, the contact tracing could be minimal because we could test the kids and then they could stay home if they were positive and go back to school if they're negative.
What did you think about this reaction from the superintendent that, look, this is crazy. We can't monitor this the right way, so let's err on the side of having kids in school because they need it?
I don't agree. I don't agree that we should send sick kids to school. I think parents should be responsible for their children. And when my kid gets sick with COVID, I want to be the one sitting next to them. I don't want it to be a nurse or one of my teacher friends or any teacher. I want it to be me who's responsible for my children.
Yeah, you said that you have a friend who's a teacher, and
I have lots of friends that are
it kind of
teachers.
heightened your concern that a lot of them are vulnerable. They're not being protected. They're not being given the information or the ability to get the information. What are your concerns there?
The school is doing the best they can do, but they're not giving us enough information so that we can make educated choices about what we do as parents, what we do as teachers. I volunteer hundreds of hours a year to our schools, which I'm not able to do this year because of COVID. So, you know, they need to let anybody help that wants to help. Really.
You know, Sanjay, we know a lot of Brandies. Parents who are trying to do the best by their kids in schools
Yeah.
that have just been
That's
left
sad.
on their own.
You can see how
The
messed
states
up she
don't have the
is.
data that the CDC does.
She's
They don't
so
have the
sad.
testing capacity to give these schools. They're not even really using tests that work practically in schools, right? These PCR tests at so many cycles, you know, they go so deep, they give you positives, you don't know if they're contagious or not, they take a long time to turn around. And is there any indication at the federal level that you're hearing of them trying something else or trying to do better?
Well, I mean, first of all, I totally sympathize. I have 3 kids too, and we went through this whole decision matrix, Brandy. It's not easy. Every family out there has sort of been left to become their own amateur epidemiologists and all this. But it was the national strategy, which is part of the challenge here. There were these gating criteria. You remember, this is when you should open schools, and there were specific criteria. You wanted to make sure that the viral spread in your community was coming down. Why? Because if it was coming down, and when it came down 14 days in a row, then your chances of actually coming in contact with somebody who has the virus was going to be significantly, if not exponentially, lower. If the positivity rate was low, that meant that you were testing enough in your community and that you were catching enough. So you can see there, what is the sort of red zone? That's on the right side of the screen. Greater than 200 cases out of 100,000 in the last 14 days. Greater than 10% positivity. Brandy, I did look at your particular community, and again, I know these are tough decisions, but you guys are sort of in that higher to highest sort of category right now, which I'm sure is something maybe you've considered, but it does make the likelihood of coming in contact with someone with the virus much higher.